Welcome back once again. We're back for episode 2, and unfortunately tonight we don't have our fellow companion here with us, Lee Shackelford. He has been lost in time today, but I'm sure he'll be back with us soon. He's probably hanging out over there in the Cultum Collective or maybe with the Pot Shop people without me, so I'm probably getting a little jealous here. So wherever Lee is, I'm sure he's doing well, and we wish him well regardless. So he'll be with us soon, hopefully for next episode. And in the meantime, I've got the other part of the Discussing Who with me. I'll turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Hi everybody. My name is Clarence. It's good to be back for a second episode, and we're here to talk some comics, sci-fi, anything we like really. Discussing who, which we're kind of just. The question is, who will we be discussing, and it'll always be different, and hopefully we'll have something interesting for you to hear.
Yeah, that's, when people look at the name and see the Discussing, seeing the Who, knowing, that two of the Pod Shop people are on it, you're going to assume that we're talking about Doctor Who, but, that's where the question mark comes in, is we're not going to limit to just talking about Doctor Who, even though I have a feeling all three of us could talk about Doctor Who all day. But we wanted to go a little bit further and go into science fiction, like Clarence said, go into comics and, whatever else comes up. So today we're going to be focusing a little bit on a particular DC character. She was introduced back, and I should have done my research before now, but I do believe she was introduced back in the 1950s, and she is the cousin of Superman. And by now, you should have guessed we're talking about Supergirl.
Oh yes, and this has been a very interesting show. I've been burned in the past. I was a huge Smallville fan. What is it? Was it 15 years ago when it came out?
Yeah, don't make me feel old.
Oh, it makes me feel old as well. But I was a huge fan of that show, and ultimately, I think it kind of let me down in the end. I think there were contractual obligations where we never saw the Superman suit in the series, and it was more of a villain by week type format, which is okay. We got to see a lot of the Clark Kent side of things, and I liked it. But by the end, it seemed like it 10 seasons, you will start to drag a little bit.
Right. And let me clarify for everybody listening, we're talking tonight or today or whenever you're listening to it. You may be listening to it in the afternoon, but whenever you're listening to us, we're talking about the CBS Supergirl TV show. Now, of course, some of the Supergirl elements from the comics are going to flow into this discussion. Speaking of, there is not a Supergirl comic out right now, which I think that's going to tie into something that's going on at DC right now. But, we don't have a Supergirl comic, but we do have a Supergirl TV show. So that's what we're focusing on for this particular episode.
And can you tell us why there isn't a Supergirl coming right now? Was that part of? I know a few years back we had the New 52 and things like that going on, and they've even rebranded again after that. So why don't we have a Supergirl comic right now?
Well, for me personally, I think it was due to low ratings. The Supergirl of New 52 was drastically different from the Supergirl who existed New 52. And for those of you who might not be aware of what New 52 was, back in 2011, DC rebranded, renumbered, started everything over from 01, first issues for the entire line. And when they did that, they also started many of the characters' origins over again. The Supergirl who was part of this new DC universe did not have the same demeanor as, well, I've come to Earth and I'm here to save the day. This Supergirl was more of, I lived on Krypton for X number of years, and you people are aliens to me. She was very offish, excuse me. She was very cold, in my opinion, and not immediately, well, here's Superman, I'm going to do the same that he's going to do. So I was subscribing to the book, dropped it because it just, wasn't my cup of tea. So that might be why, but I think it's going to tie into something that's coming in the summer of this year that's going to be happening in DC that's going to perhaps tie into where she's been or why she's not around now.
So you look at things. We fast forward from that till today, and we have Supergirl on CBS with a television show, and it's kind of funny because it seems like over the last few years, Marvel has pretty much owned the movie sphere with their MCU, and now we have kind of DC kind of owning the television space. They have a lot of really good shows, highly rated shows on right now. And although I'm not into most of them, they're really kind of taking that space and owning it.
Well, what's happening with the crossover between Supergirl and Flash that's supposed to be upcoming, honestly, I did not expect to even happen. I mean, you've got the CW and you have the, CBS crossing characters over, which, happens once in a blue moon. I mean, I understand that they're on two different days, et cetera, and so forth. But yeah, I agree. Marvel it seems to have dominated, just like you said. But in their TV universe, yes, you had Agents of Shield crossing over with the Avengers and especially Captain America. But they've gone out of their way to say that Daredevil and that group of characters is not going to interact with the movie version. So,
Oh, real? Is that the directive? I haven't really heard that.
yeah, I read that. Now, let's take that on speculation. Something could have changed, but yes,
Yeah.
I did read that.
Well, while we probably won't see the characters cross over, I will say, at least in Daredevil, not so much in Jessica Jones, you do see nuggets of the MCU in that show where they talk about certain things that happen in New York. It may
True, true.
very short, but kind of just a nugget at the people who are watching the Netflix branded shows.
Yeah, good point. Good point. But back to DC. Supergirl. This version of Supergirl. I'll be honest with you. When I watched the first episode, I really didn't expect going into it for it to last past three episodes. Nothing, nothing wrong. I mean, I actually enjoyed the first episode, but this is Supergirl. It's on CBS. CBS is not generally your comic book, it's coming on Monday at 7 p.m.
I agree. I mean, certainly
back to back
surprised to
with
see it on there.
yeah, and back to back with Gotham as well. So you add those two together, and with Gotham having such a strong first season, I expected them to basically smother out Supergirl, and actually, it's somewhat the opposite's happened.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree because I started with Gotham as well and thought it was going to be really strong, but I kind of just, for no good reason, kind of just fell off of the series, and it's not bad, but to me, it's not great. So I've kind of like just latched on to Supergirl. Really, I think the main point of me latching on to the series is this is a character I don't know anything about. I mean, we had a movie, what was it, in the 80s? There
Right.
was a movie, but I don't know anything about this character. So you're getting all types of things or nuggets about this background, her relationship with her cousin and things like that. I just knew nothing about this character. So for me, it's been pretty good. I don't know how closely it ties in with what we know from the comic books. Maybe you can speak to that, but I've enjoyed it.
All right. Before I answer your question, let me ask you a question. With Supergirl, based on what you've watched, considering the fact that you didn't know much about the character, 1 minute, tell me who is Supergirl?
She is Kal-El's cousin from Krypton. Who? What's the name of the city they're in?
I think Central City there,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe,
You know,
or some national city or something.
yeah. She's the defender of that city. She's basically the Superman equivalent of the city she's in. So I mean, I as far as her being as far as the comparison from her to Superman, I think it's kind of seeing the same looking in the mirror at her origin story versus his. But of course, she's a girl and she has a lot different problems than Superman would have had.
All right, so let me ask you this: based on what you figured out, or what you've seen, or what you've read, were they both? They were not babies, or he was a baby, she was a teenager, right?
Yes, yes, or
Okay,
it looked like 11 to 12 or something like
right.
that in that range.
All right, so and that's pretty much in line with the comics. And the original version of her origin, Supergirl, was actually, her ship crash landed to Earth just like his did. She was a teenager instead of a baby. Originally, she was put in an orphanage by him to protect her. Now, again, this is the 50s, 60s, so it doesn't make sense in today's society. Why would he take her to an orphanage? Why not just take her home with him?
Certainly.
But he puts her in an orphanage. That's where the Linda, I think it was Linda Lee at the time, was the name that she took. She wore a brown wig and became, Supergirl, had the adventures and et cetera and so forth. The next
Well,
version, go ahead.
no, I was just going to ask, was the origin of her getting there later still like the Phantom Zone kind of causing her
No,
to?
no, it wasn't the Phantom Zone. I think there was something. It took her longer to get there. I can't remember exactly why she didn't get there in time. It may have been the Phantom Zone. There's been so many versions of Supergirl's origin. I mean, at one point she was an earthbound angel. At one point, so she was a protoplasmic creature at one point. So there's, so many origins for Supergirl that, it's very easy to get DC origins confused.
Certainly, and then we get all types of nuggets from the different parts of the DC universe in the show. You have a black Jimmy Olsen, which is funny to me. And you have Martian Manhunter as well in the series. So there's all kind of nuggets in there to latch on to that. Even if you don't know anything about Supergirl, can kind of tie you in. We even saw Kal-El in the episode, which was kind of weird.
Yeah, and you did recognize. Did you see the episode where they had the mother or her adopted mother, and you saw the father? I think in the first episode, you
Yes.
recognized them.
Yeah, certainly the father is the Superman from the Lois and Clark years. I love that show back in the late '90s. And the wasn't the mother the Supergirl from the '80s show, '80s
Correct.
movie?
She is Helen Slater from the movies. Correct. And now the entire storyline with the sister, the adoptive sister, that's new. That's something that's never occurred in the actual comics.
Is the DEO a real thing?
Yeah, that is just like Star Labs is real. Yeah, that's real. The Martian Manhunter has had many identities over the years, so that's similar to one of his personalities or his covers or identities or however you want to call it. So yeah, he's had several different IDs over the years.
Now, I will say it's a bit surprising to see him in a television show because isn't he a part of the Justice League?
He he was originally back in the 60s, but in the new 52, he's been replaced by a cyborg.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
But
So
but go ahead.
now I was just gonna say, do you think they will? Well, you kind of hinted at it earlier. are they going to completely keep this universe? We'll have like a DC television universe. Going to completely keep it separate from the movies and not kind of do any tie-ins or anything like that.
I don't really think they can they? Because
Uh,
the mood of the movies is just so different to me.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I wouldn't think they'd be able to even do it with the on the Marvel side, but it seems like they've been able to kind of weave it in there to where it makes a little bit of sense.
Well, see, I think, and see, it's interesting looking back. Marvel has their issues with Fox owning part of their staple of characters or stable of characters, excuse me. And then on this side, DC is owned by Warner Brothers, so they don't have that issue. But they've not done, in my opinion, a very good job of creating this singular universe like the way they did with Iron Man leading into, what was it, Hulk, that led into Thor with all Phil Coulson and every single one of them.
Yeah.
That was very smart to do.
Well, I mean, you got to think of it too. Like, it wasn't really proven that you could make that work, a few years ago. So, well, it's what been probably 8 years, 6 or 8 years now. But, I mean, Marvel has certainly proved that that can work. And on top of that, you have DC going through a big transition period, which they're just now starting to lay the groundwork to where they can build on something for the future. You had the Christian Bale Batman, which is very popular, and in no way, I mean, that was a cash cow. No way they're gonna do anything to interrupt that. Even though you have Marvel over here starting something great that could last for a really long time. So I mean, now they've kind of rebooted things. We have Ben Affleck coming on as Batman, and you had a Superman movie a few years ago. So they're laying the groundwork to build their universe as well, and maybe since they've had the advantage of seeing Marvel do it, they can do something that's really great. At least that's what I'm hoping.
All right. So let's go back to Supergirl for a second. So what do you see as long-term plans for Supergirl? Because in a way, what's happening right now is that villain of the week to some degree. So what do you see as long-term story?
You know what? That's going to be a hard funk to get out of, to be quite honest. Because, I mean, it's just the first season, and we've already seen other Kryptonians and things like that. So taking it to another level, I think for them will be hard. Um, I'm I'm really interested to see what they do in the second season because they've kind of pulled all the stops, and that was necessary because this is a character people don't know, so they have to keep it. They can't allow there to be a lot of lull in the story. They have to keep it exciting each episode, which they've kind of done the villain of the week thing. But to me, they've kind of done a lot of all of what they could do. Again, me not knowing the backstory of Supergirl, there could be a plethora of things in the background that I just have no idea
And and
about the
see
character.
and see what's so sad in a way for the character because of what I was saying earlier about there have been so many retellings or revising or reversioning or however you want to put it of Supergirl. There's not that much meat to her story because back in '85 when they did Crisis, the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, DC decided that Superman needed to be the lone surviving Kryptonian, and during Crisis, the original Supergirl died, and when that happened, without having a Supergirl, Kara Zor-El was dead, gone, kaput. So you went from about 86 to about 88 before they decided, oh, well, hey, we need a Supergirl. That's, let's merchandise or let's create a Supergirl. And that's where you came in with a protoplasmic entity that was idolizing Superman and took on a female appearance and became Supergirl. And then, you right, exactly. So it was almost 15, I think it was about 15 years before they actually reintroduced Kara Zor-El proper back into the DC universe. And let's not even get started on Power Girl.
Well, let me ask you this. I haven't watched Flash or Green Arrow. How many episodes a season are those a series?
I'm going to speculate that they're about 20, about the same as the normal, U.S. Number of episodes. I have not watched Arrow. The only thing that I've watched on Arrow is when Flash has crossed over.
Okay.
Yeah.
That being said, I think Supergirl could have done so much more with a AMC like 10 episode, 12 episode series, To me, and I even have this problem with Agents of Shield, to be quite honest. To me, the stretching it out to 20, 22 episodes kind of thins out the quality of the episodes, and it also thins out the budget. So, I mean, they've done impressive things in Supergirl to get around the budget, or even just the things they've shown have been okay for a budget of a show that's like 20 episodes. But the way that shows on Netflix and things like or Amazon can get around that super big having a super big budget is by having a tighter season. So that being said, to me, a 12 episode season could have greatly benefited this show. And then,
Yes.
and on
Yeah,
top
I
of the
agree.
fact that you just said there's not that much material for Supergirl, and someone may write in and prove us wrong on that.
True, true. So if you were to do a 10 or 12 episode season, how would you do it?
I think the only thing I would really change, I would have like a strong, consistent storyline throughout the length of all the episodes. I mean, like we just mentioned before, it's been more of a monster by week type of thing. But again, in the way television now is now with binge watching and so forth, having a consistent, tight series allows for a arc that goes through the entire range of episodes. So that's the way I would change it. Which that might not be what you want for a show that's on CBS. So I think we have to say that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Your 10 or 12 episodes, and if anybody hears noise in the background, I currently live by a train track, so we've got a Mummy on the Orient Express heading through right beside me. But yeah, I agree. They do their 22 episodes for a reason. A lot of that has to do with that's just how the United States broadcast has always been. We've not done the traditional 12 and 13 only that they do in Britain. So,
Yeah, and overall, I'll just say that the show is mostly lighthearted, but I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. What's the name of the technology company? Cybertech? Was it Cyber?
yeah, I think so. Maxwell Lord, who actually led a version or was like a financial backer or advisor to the version of the Justice League that was right after Crisis. So
Cool.
he actually became a villain and was murdered. Well, not murdered. He had taken control of Superman and was going to have Superman maybe kill Batman. I can't remember,
Wow.
but Wonder Woman broke his neck to prevent him from making Superman do whatever it was that he was going to have Superman do, and that in part led into the 2005 Infinite Crisis.
Oh, well, he has a pretty big role then.
Yeah.
I mean, even we had what Bizarro or Bizarre Girl. I don't know what they call her.
Bizarro Supergirl. Yeah, that was interesting.
yeah, that was cool. I really didn't expect that, but
Now, one thing I'll tell you, one thing I do like and one thing I don't like, and I'll start with the negative first. I don't like using Martian Manhunter as a scapegoat to explain how Supergirl and Kara can be in the same place at the same time.
yeah, it's kind of getting around. If we just think about Superman, one of Superman's age-old questions of how come you can't just know that's Clark, the
Right.
glasses, and some may call it clever, but yeah, it does seem like a huge scapegoat to just, whenever she's needed in two places, let's pop the Martian Manhunter up and pretend he's Kara, That was
Now,
pretty funny.
on the flip side, what I really liked was Cat Grant, played by Callista Flockhart, of course, of Ally McBeal fame, and then went on to be in Brothers and Sisters. So I really like her character. What do you think of her?
Yeah, I didn't really watch Alabama Bill, so I don't know much about her. But she seems like the type of character she plays the character well. I'll say it like that. I
Yeah.
really enjoy her. I think she's great. She fits in. Her and Kara's interactions. I think are kind of what makes the show in a lot of ways. And then like the I mentioned it before, the addition of Jimmy Olsen and the other tech guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, the toy man's son.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's right.
So
Yeah.
it's like what you said. There's a lot of bits and pieces that they put in there. I think what they could have done this season was to left out the whole story with her aunt being escaping from the Phantom Zone and having the other Kryptonians. You really needed
Up
to
the
have
stakes too
one.
early.
Right. You needed really just one bad overarching bad guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really think they could have took the whole Bizarro story and kind of stretched it out a little bit and made that the main arc. But again, you have the problem of 20 episodes where you have to find something else. And I think if they would have just held off on the whole Kryptonian thing to next season, it could have made for a really, really great next season. But I mean, it seems like they pulled all the cards out so far. But again, I'll be surprised at what they come up with next time.
Something tells me that no one really banked on it doing well. I think that's why they put all their, as you said, put all their cards on the table. Was they didn't expect for it to do well. It got greenlit, but I don't think anyone, myself included, like I said at the very beginning, I didn't expect for it to last, 3, 6, however many episodes. I didn't expect it to be beating, if I'm not mistaken, Gotham in the ratings.
And it's true. And it seemed like the announcement and even, how soon the first episode came out was like all of a sudden. I guess maybe if you were following that closely, you would have knew about it. But it seemed like it came out of the blue.
Yeah,
One advantage of it doing so well though is maybe we'll get a second season with a tremendously better budget and maybe a lot more that will draw people in.
yeah, I agree, and I think exactly what you just said. The more the more money that they can get out of it, the more money they're going to put into it.
Yeah, so funny. An article came out a couple weeks ago. Tom Welling, the guy that played Clark in Smallville, he said he would love to come on for an episode. He's not ruling it out. He said nobody's called him, but he'd go. He'd do it if he was
See,
asked.
if they were smart, that's who I would have liked to have seen playing Superman in the movies.
Yeah, I think the guy that they got is a good find, but yeah, it seemed like the opportunity was ripe. And again, we mentioned it, it's before the whole MCU thing, so that hadn't been established. But if you look back, the time was ripe to make him the next Superman. And I think at that time we got the Brian what's
Brian Singer, yeah,
yeah, yeah, his
and his guy is in. He plays the Atom, which is one of my least favorite parts of Legends of Tomorrow, which, by the way, is another
he's a
episode.
regular on
Oh,
that show.
yeah, he's
Wow,
a
I didn't know
regular.
that.
Yeah,
Wow, that's interesting. Man, yeah. Um, so yeah, I'm stick with the series. Like again, I'm waiting for the second season, and hopefully we'll have a great finale. You know, I guess they're what 12, 13 episodes in so far,
I think
maybe.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how they actually finish things off.
Well, I doubt this would ever happen because they would have to get someone that looked enough like her, but that didn't quite look like her. But I would like to see an episode, and maybe this would be a good cliffhanger. But like I said, they won't probably never do it. I would love to see Supergirl meet Power Girl.
That would be interesting.
So real quick, I know our time is almost up, and we've been going on and on about Supergirl, but do you want to know about Power Girl real quick?
Yeah, who is this Power Girl you speak of?
All right, so DC is famous for having numbered Earths, and what I mean by that was the comics that were published in the 30s, the 40s, the early 50s, or most of the 50s, with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, they established as being on a separate Earth of Earth 2. And this older Superman also had a Supergirl that came, but instead of putting her in a orphanage, he and his wife, Lois Lane Kent, basically became surrogate parents for Kara, who was her own person, didn't want to be Supergirl. She was going to, be on her own, and she was very different from the Supergirl character, other than they looked mostly alike. She was a little older, I would say, than the way they generally depicted Supergirl as looking, and was very headstrong, totally a person of her own, a woman of her own, and I think would, in my opinion, beat Supergirl any day. All right. Well, I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna add real quick. It would be great to see Power Girl, but I don't know if I want to bring on the tyranny of the multiverse to the television.
Yeah. Well,
television series.
they've been doing that in Flash, so it's already there.
Oh yeah,
So
they did do that. I
yeah.
remember seeing a promo for it.
Yep,
Yeah.
we've already met. We've already been to well, not traditional Earth 2, but a different version of Earth 2. So we've already been there. So, but I think that is pretty much wrapping it, unless you've got something else to add.
I know I've enjoyed the discussion and can't wait for next time.
Well, I have as well, and any of our listeners that wants to send us a tweet, you can tweet us at Discussing Who on Twitter. You can also follow the blog on Tumblr at discussingwho.tumblr.com, and we'd love to hear from you. So until next time, we will be discussing Who at a later date. So thank you for listening, and appreciate it.